Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Lucas Oil, TireRack.com, and RockAuto.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 278. And around our MotorWeek podcast table here in Studio C at MotorWeek headquarters is Dave Scrivener, Kyle Scanlon, and Jessica Ray, and we're going to jump right into it. We've had three recent vehicles that we've done first drives on. We're going to talk about them today. One of them, however, the return of a iconic sports car, we're going to save to the end, but we're going to start off with what has to be, I think, the single most talked about vehicle of the year, and that is the 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning. We've been hearing about it for so long, it doesn't even seem new anymore, but finally we've had a chance to spend some quality time in it. Kyle, you're the man in the driver's seat on this one, so what was it like? You're an F-150 owner. What did you think? You were a skeptic going in. Take it away.
Well, definitely, I did go in as a skeptic for this super highly anticipated model.
All electric.
Offered with two different battery setups, your standard battery with 452 horsepower, and then the extended range, which goes all the way up to 580, both with 775 pound-feet of torque. And I got to say, I was absolutely blown away. I went in there, like you said, skeptical. I am a truck guy.
Very skeptical.
I was very skeptical. I like big V8s. I like loud diesels. You know, I'm a truck guy, and I'll tell you, the second you got into that vehicle, unlike almost all other EVs, you got in it and you wouldn't even have known you were in an EV. They didn't add so much tech and extra buttons and all this stuff that it made it look like a spaceship.
He was already, the F-150 is already very tech heavy.
Well, already very tech heavy. But
I'm not being critical of that announcement. I'm saying, you know, they didn't have to add very much.
No, they didn't, because it is a tech-heavy truck to begin with, but they just didn't change the aesthetics of it to make it seem so tech-forward, like some of the cars like the Mercedes we just got in.
The EQS.
The EQS. You get in that thing. It
looks like a spaceship.
And it's exactly like being in a spaceship. I just drove it to the track and back right before I got here, and it was definitely a spaceship. But anyways, we're not talking about that. F-150 Lightning. I was blown away. One of the things that's great about those is the instant torque, obviously, and it gets you going. And getting on and off the freeways around San Antonio, they're very crowded, very busy, and I have a 12-year-old truck that, you know, takes a little bit of time to get up to speed, but you just kind of blink at that pedal in the F-150 Lightning, and it takes off, and you are up to merging speed in a matter of 100 yards.
Now, how many hours did you actually spend behind the wheel?
Behind the wheel in
hours?
Total, with driving to and from locations on the 2 days, I might have spent upwards more of like 5 hours behind the wheel.
Were you ever concerned about range?
I wasn't, but we weren't driving that far. So, you know, at most, we were maybe driving what would have been half of the battery life on the car.
What are they talking about for maximum range?
I believe the first one I got in was an extended range, and that had, I believe it was around 300 when I got into it.
320.
Yeah, around 300, 320. But again, because I knew I wasn't driving that far, it's not something I was so focused on. I was more so thinking about, you know, the road feel, if it felt like a truck, which it did.
Steering still had that truck sort of.
Yep, steering has that great truck. Even the throttle feels like a gas-powered engine. And, you know, it's not as twitchy. And if you put it, you know, once you put it in off-road mode, it actually changes the response feel on the throttle so that it's actually, if you're in off-road, it's a little more forgiving for when you're trying to, you know, get over a rock or a difficult obstacle, that it won't pump so much power that you just kind of fly away.
I got one more question. Then
Yes.
I'll hush up and let everybody else dive in. I'm bothered by the TV commercials that they show it towing a heavy trailer. Any insight into how, say, towing a 6,000-pound or 7,000-pound trailer, because I think it has a maximum of 10,000 pounds.
For the extended range battery,
Right.
yes.
What does that do to the range? Does that, I mean, you know, they show it out in the middle of the desert, and I'm thinking, well, how many times did you charge it up to get there?
Well, that question was asked by myself and many other people, and the response basically was the same percentage that it will take you away from a gas-powered or diesel-powered engine is going to do the same thing to the batteries.
Half.
Yeah, so basically half. So if you're with the extended range battery running with 10,000 pounds in the back, which is its max tow capacity,
you might get 150 miles.
You'll get probably 150 miles,
something like that. Well, that's
you're probably on flat ground.
A reasonable, and I think that fits in with Ford's, trying to make sure that it you look at it like you would any other F-150.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You won't take it on long distance camping trips, but you might take it to the lake with your boat, which might be 100 miles away.
Yeah, exactly. Keep the trips around 100 miles an hour, and if you find a fast charger in between, then go for it. But I wouldn't be expecting any long hauls. Yeah. With a heavy trailer.
Any EV, actually. Yeah.
Price, though, I mean, I'm of the belief that with all, right now we have so many electric vehicles, but 70% of sales are still Teslas. Mm-hmm. I think the F-150 is going to change that equation.
Yes.
Big time.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. As long as they can build them.
Yep. Yeah. Well, they're building, what have they built? They built 5,000 of them so far, or at least they did a week ago.
Mm-hmm. Compared to the price of the Hummer truck.
Yeah,
it's even the top model.
It's a drop in the bucket. Yeah,
the base model starting right over after destination $40,000. That's a bargain.
Yeah, and it makes it accessible 42. As a work truck.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the Pro. That is the worker's truck. Right. Is that model, and then the Platinum starts just under 93, which is still a lot of money for a truck. It's big money, but I mean, I know people that spend that money on trucks. So
those on par for the course these days.
Yeah, we get new trucks in here all the time that are $80,000 and up. So, yeah, I mean, it's not
once you're hitting the top trim levels for sure.
I mean, it's not my cup of tea, but
but people are buying them. People are buying them.
They are.
They clearly are okay with spending close to six figures on a pickup truck.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask everybody around the table, what do you think? I mean, one of the big selling points of not only the F-150 Lightning, but also a lot of the other EVs that we've gotten in, is this is a big battery that you can charge and run a lot of other stuff off of, including your house.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which I actually think that is a huge sales positive.
Yeah, we had a run through of that whole system, so I forget the exact specifics of it, but when you buy the truck, I believe you get the home charging system and then the entire system that you were just talking about that brings the power out.
You have to have it installed in your house.
Yeah, very special box system, which I'm sorry, I just got back from the racetrack, so I don't have my notes.
It's an interface. It's not that unusual with the generator.
Yeah, but it'll read, if you have your truck plugged in and the power goes out, it will automatically know that the power is out in your house and then take the power from the truck and reroute it into your house. And if you're using minimal stuff, basically just keeping your refrigerator running and one TV in the living room or something like that, you can do it for about 3 days.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I think it's really cool.
That is cool. I mean, I've got a backup generator at home, and it's the same principle.
Yeah,
except yours doesn't run.
It starts every Wednesday and it tests itself.
I remember when you first, I'm getting off the subject, you first got that installed, and the first time you went to use it, it ran for like a minute. And, yeah, well,
works better now.
You're better off than I am. Thanks, Kyle. That was, I can't wait to actually spend some time in it myself, because I know I have so many friends that have already put down money on one.
Wow.
And I saw somebody on the internet today was talking about they put down money on the Rivian, and Rivian's having severe production problems.
Yep.
So this same person has also got money down on the Lightning and said whichever one arrives first, they're going to buy. So
you're only going to put $100 down. So
yeah,
not
it's
a
next to
biggie.
nothing. Okay, I'm then let's turn things over to Jessica now for a totally different take, but a hugely important take, and that is the all-new 2022 Mercedes-Benz C-Class. Really the benchmark, I think, for the luxury class of sedan, and for all automobiles, really. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is Mercedes' best-selling model. Mm-hmm. It is, and it's their entry-level vehicle. So it's really important to their brand, obviously. And one of the things that when I drove the S-Class last year for the very first time, I mean, obviously you drive the S-Class, and that's like the top-notch, top-of-the-line epitome of luxury. But when I drove the S-Class, I thought, what does this mean for the rest of the lineup, right? What does this mean for the E-Class? What does this mean for the C-Class? And obviously a new C-Class is here, and you can clearly see where that new design language for the S-Class has come into play on the exterior and on the interior.
But it doesn't look that much different, I don't think, does it?
It's not a revolutionary update,
Right.
I would say,
But
on the
then
outside.
That's typical for them, though.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, I would say like the current gen, or the old, because this is now the current gen, but the old gen, I think aged pretty well. But like everything is just a little bit smoother, and like the taillights are a little bit more modern now on the 2022 model. It's got the cab backward design, so like the like hood and like the front of the vehicle is just a little bit bigger, a little bit longer. So it kind of has a much
So they
larger
push
presence.
the cab rearward a bit.
Yes, correct.
right.
Yes. So yes, and so so when you look at it, you're like, that looks like a tiny S-Class. It looks like its little sibling. So exterior wise, that's, you can imagine. But then interior wise, it has that same sort of dash cluster setup, as well as that brand new central display that's like 12 inches.
It's huge.
It's huge. I mean, it's very big, which at first is intimidating. And there also is like less piano black in the C-Class, which I really appreciated, so that my fingerprints didn't get everywhere. But there's like a lot of standard features here. You get wireless Apple CarPlay, you get an Android Auto, standard sunroof, standard safety features. You get pre-safe, but then also, because starting price we'll talk is like just around $45,000 after destination.
Well, let me ask you this question, again, a little off topic, but since sedans are waning in their influence in this country, what does the new C-Class tell you about their entry-level and mid-level SUVs that are coming, that are going to be based on basically the same chassis?
Well, I mean, it's just it almost seems like Mercedes is currently staying just ahead of everybody else, right, with their standard features. They're thinking to themselves, like, we're going to make sure, because they recognize that the gap between the top of the line non-luxury vehicles and then entry-level luxury vehicles seems to shrink every single year. That was something that we talked about at the event. So what they have essentially is just that much more, right? Standard features that would interest people into staying with an entry-level luxury.
I used to call those near luxury cars.
Right. So, of course, like you can also option this thing out so it'll get over $60,000, right? And which includes a really interesting feature, which on the S-Class is the augmented reality head-up display, which essentially just puts a marker on the road that you can see and tells you exactly where to go. It's an arrow.
It's kind of weird the first time it does it.
It is. Right. So now the C-Class is entry level. It doesn't have that. But what they did do, because keep in mind, like putting something like that would be incredibly expensive in an entry level model. But what they did do is they now utilize the center display, that large center display. And when you are using the native navigation, it will put a video will come up on that center display, and it will put the arrow on the road essentially in front of you. So instead of seeing it in the head-up display, you can still see it in the center display.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I would have thought it would have worked better in the dash cluster, right? Because I mean the dash cluster, keep in mind, is also 12 inches long. It's still very big. So I would have thought it would have made sense because you just kind of take your eyes down just briefly instead of taking your eyes off to the side. But still, like, very, very cool technology. And I really was impressed with, like, how they were able to still implement what we, saw in this top-level model and put it in their entry level.
Before I let you go, powertrains, any hybrid powertrain, it's kind of unusual not to hear about that first.
Well, correct. So yes, also big news specifically for the C-Class is that it now comes standard with a mild hybrid powertrain. So it has a 48-volt battery in it that helps, with efficiency and powering other things. But so that actually will give you. Let me look at I have my horsepower numbers here. So the internal combustion engine will get you 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That's the i4 turbo, but that EQ boost with their mild hybrid system will get you an additional 20 horsepower and 148 pound-feet of torque.
That's a lot.
So that's a total of 443 pound-feet of torque.
Right. And that's going to be available when you initially hit the gas to move away.
Correct. Yeah, you put that in sport mode, and it was a lot of fun. It's paired with a 9-speed automatic. So, really an incredibly impressive model. And I kind of can't wait to spend some more time in it.
I couldn't agree with you more. Okay, we're going to come back to one more vehicle we'll talk with Dave about in a few minutes, but let's go to a lightning round, and this involves a recent Volkswagen announcement that they're going to be reviving the old Scout brand. And those of you that don't remember the Scout brand, that means you're not as old as I am. It's the old International Harvester off-road and pickup truck brand. I'm not even sure when they stopped, Dave. You would know that. 60s?
70s.
They're going to be using the Scout brand with an electric pickup truck and an SUV. It'll be founded as a separate brand to VW and even a separate company. Production is slated to start a few years from now in 2026. What do we all think about Volkswagen finally entering the truck segment in the U.S. and because they've teased us with their global pickup truck before?
The Rabbit wasn't a truck?
Pardon?
The Rabbit wasn't a pickup
well,
truck?
That's
it was
true.
A diesel, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if you remember the Scout brand, you remember the old VW Bugs.
I guess Volkswagen acquired the parent company through various mergers and got rights to the brand.
Or the name, anyway.
The name.
Yeah.
And, the retro trend is hot with Bronco and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess it makes sense to bring back the Scout, which has a cult following of its own.
All right. Now, the Scout name, to anybody here, but you're because you know more about what vehicles from yesteryear than anyone else. What does Scout, what image in your mind, capability-wise, what is this thing going to have to be to live up to that name?
Well, it wasn't, the Scout back in the day wasn't as, I think, as rugged as the Bronco was. It was like a Wagoneer type, kind of a country gentleman farmer vehicle, gentleman farmer vehicle.
Right.
Perhaps it wasn't your serious off-roader. I guess they had packages that might have gone off-road like that, but I don't see it as the same, like a
It's
Jeep.
not a Wrangler
It's not a
or a
Jeep.
Bronco.
It's not a Wrangler. It's not a Bronco.
I think that's fair. I don't ever remember until I saw people taking old ones and tricking them out that it was particularly
stock,
noted.
they weren't all that. And they had a travel all, too, which is like the Suburban.
That's right.
And
I mean, they could get you through a muddy farm field if you had to. And, of course, being electric means it's going to have a low center of gravity and probably be pretty heavy.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I mean, I think it's going to enter in a time where there's going to be a lot of competition. In the next 5 years, we're going to be seeing a lot of EV pickups and a lot of EV larger SUVs. But Volkswagen also is they understand that their future is electric, and I've enjoyed so far, the ID4. I think that's a really great start for the brand
and the Buzz.
And the Buzz. I can't wait to drive the Buzz. So, I think it'll be really interesting.
They're building the ID brand, which is great, and they've got a variety of things coming out with that platform, SUVs and vans and things. And I think having the Scout as this kind of a separate little thing might give their truck push more presence because of the name and a little something different.
Kyle, as a truck guy?
Yeah, I mean, I love the old Scouts. I like the style of them. I thought they were fantastic.
All right,
really,
so you're
really cool.
substantially younger than you could possibly be to have experienced the Scout originally.
Not truly.
When you see a Scout, what does it? And you like them.
I do.
What
like
does it
them.
say to you? What is it that you find appealing?
I mean, bare bones, like Dave was saying, they're not the greatest thing in the world. I kind of see potential. If I see one on the road, I'm like, oh, I can do a whole lot to that and make it look really, really cool. But what I'm interested to see what Volkswagen does is, how much are they going to touch on the old styling? Because with like the ID and stuff like that, they're not doing throwback stuff. They're making stuff look newer and more futuristic and sleeker. And the Scout is
homogeneous.
Yeah, and the Scout is just this boxy.
You've got that image in
thing.
your mind of what the Scout.
Yeah,
is.
so
much like what Ford did with the Bronco.
Exactly, and I think Ford did a good job with the Bronco. I don't think Jeep did as good of a job with the Wagoneer as when it comes to like a throwback look. It looks absolutely nothing like the original.
They just wanted to sell it.
And they just wanted to sell that big old thing. But I just hope that they don't focus so much on the idea of it just being electric that therefore they got to make it look super electric. This is even just going back to before with the F-150 Lightning. It doesn't look that much different than the regular F-150s out there, which is what's going to make real truck people look at it more so than anything else. And I think if they keep the Scout and do a really good job not doing too much, just kind of, keep it simple. And
keep it simple.
Yep, keep it simple. And I think they'll get people to take a look at it.
Let's transition to something entirely different, but marginally related because of the times we're in. We have a viewer question from John Jensen. Very nice, John. Says, love your show and watch you weekly. Thank you very, very much. He was very impressed with our review of the Ford Maverick. He went online a few days ago and found a few local dealers that had them in stock. He checked their prices. They showed the MSRP pricing, and under it, another charge called addendum pricing, which was an additional $10,000, or basically half of the base price of the truck.
There's the fine print, folks.
This additional amount was due to high demand and low available units. It's also called market adjustment pricing. Mm-hmm. Both Ford and GM are upset at the practice. What are our feelings on the situation? Gee, I think we may all agree on this. Go ahead.
We all hate it.
A really bad situation.
Ford and GM may be against it, but dealerships kind of have the leeway to do this.
And Dave's had some first-hand experience.
I was in Chicago on a shoot and saw a GMC Hummer pickup on the showroom floor. It was sold at $298.
Oh.
It had a $171,000 market adjustment on the sticker, and some fool bought it.
That is just robbery.
It's just a bad look.
It's
pure
greed. Automotive dealers don't have the best reputation as far as, shall I say, taking advantage of the situation. This is just going to hurt them long term. I know they're making money right now and they can sell everything they get, but their reputation, some of these dealers have spent decades and untold amounts of money advertising what honest places they are, we trustworthy, all of this, and a lot of it's just being thrown out the window.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely agree. I think this is just going to burn them in the end because thinking about like the Maverick, right, specifically, this is supposed to be a cheap truck.
Right.
You're buying this truck because it is under $25,000. And when you go to a dealership to buy a XLT, with the EcoBoost engine that MSRP's at $23,000 and you can't get it for less than $35,000?
Yeah.
Something is wrong.
Yeah.
But I will also say to people, stop buying cars because clearly they are selling them. That's why they're marking them up.
They're getting away with it, so they keep doing it.
I understand if you absolutely need a vehicle. Your old vehicle has died for the last time. I got asked this question just a neighbor of mine whose daughter in Atlanta just paid. She actually got a decent deal. She bought a Ford Explorer and got it for a little less than sticker. And I said, she's a good negotiator, obviously.
Yeah.
But he said, is there anything right now that you can buy? I said, I don't think people should be buying anything right now unless they absolutely have to, or there's some compelling reason. For instance, the particular model you like so much is going out of production, or it's going to be changed, or there's features going away. Something where if you wait, you won't be able to get it. But if you can get it a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, and you don't need it, don't make this situation worse. Yeah. But like you said, even though sales are way off the pace of 16 million the industry would like to see, they're still selling 13 million. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people still buying. Yeah. And right now, one of the interesting things, of course, is that electric vehicle sales are way up. They're up like up 40%. But that's 40% in a market that's down, about 20%. So you got to keep things in perspective.
Right.
But right now, if you are in the new car market, please look carefully. Play one dealer off against the other. Some of them actually are still selling vehicles at or only slightly above the listed price. If someone wants a whole bunch of money from you extra, you can try to negotiate them down, but failing that, go somewhere else. Go on to the internet and look for dealers that are in the middle of nowhere, where they have limited markets. You might find a better deal, and it might be worth your driving.
Yeah, this situation just can only end badly. I think it can only end badly for dealers. I think it can only end badly for consumers as well, because, well, like we look at a Maverick, you are spending $35,000 on a car that's only worth $23,000.
And it's not going to be depreciated from that 35.
Correct.
It'll be depreciated from 23.
Market value in 5 years.
Yes.
Will not
You
be.
walk off the lot, you lost $12,000 immediately.
You will lose money. I mean, maybe not right now. Right now, because you can flip things right now, but eventually
to trade it in, and you're looking for how much my vehicle's worth for that new vehicle. If times have changed, well, it doesn't matter where times have changed. They will look up in a book how much is the wholesale value.
You're still
of that
making payments on $35,000.
That's right, and you're going to be seriously underwater, big time.
Upside down on that.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you, John. Very good question. Before we wrap things up, I want to go back to Dave Scrivener. Dave has had a chance to experience one of the most talked about sporty cars ever, even when it was in production. Now it was out of production for a couple of years. Now it's back, the 2023 Nissan Z. Stopped production in 20, I believe.
Did it? Okay.
I believe so.
All right.
Anyway.
This is not really, I think they still use the old chassis a little bit and upgraded the caster and camera for better turn-in.
We've been teased about this for what, 2 years, 3 years?
It's just called the Z now.
Right.
It always, the number designation followed the size of the engine. You had a 240Z, because 2.4, 2.6. This would have been a 300Z, because it's a 3-liter twin-turbo V6. So I think going to just Z gives it a cachet.
I do too.
And you want to go down from 370Z back to 300.
Right.
It's kind of a downward spiral there. 400 horsepower for less than $40K is the tagline, basically. The Supra's not quite 400 horsepower. It's about $10,000 more, right?
I believe so.
This car's looks like a bargain.
It's a bargain, and it comes in 2 trim level. That they have everybody has the launch edition. This is the proto thing. It's $10,000 more than the middle version, but it gives you the wheels and the trim and the stitching and the color and all that. But basically, there's 2 versions: the base and the performance and sport, or sport and performance. And the base model is no slouch. It's got the same 400 horsepower. It doesn't have limited slip rear. A couple little things like go fast goodies that aren't quite there, but it's certainly a great driver's car. Nothing to complain about. You're not missing anything by driving the base model.
The 370Z and its immediate predecessors, generally speaking, they were competent, but they got fairly soft. Do you feel like this is a return to the original formula of I won't say bare bones or serious, but basically a true sports car?
True sports car for street, for driving. You feel really in tune with the car, in tune with the road. Great crisp steering, throttle response is very good. Not a whole lot of turbo lag, but it's there, and you feel the 400 horsepower. It's not a track car like the Supra is. It's not meant to be. They don't brag about Nürburgring lap times and how fast is 0 to 60. It's competent. It's fast. It's not as fast as the Super, I don't think.
Was it fun?
Very fun, very engaging.
So you could basically toss the rear end around a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. With the 6-speed, more than the automatic, more to my liking, but they offer both. Thank you. And, a good performance car for the money, especially.
Any comments on what it looks like? It's an interesting mix of old and new.
Everybody kind of says, well, from here back it looks great. The mouth is kind of like this big squared-looking thing. But they showed the presentation was very, carefully showed the arc of the roof and how it squats in the rear a little bit like the old cars. And the headlight bucket isn't dished out like it used to be, but it has the same kind of design theme. And a great talk to us by the designer himself, and he was very engaging and history of the car and how it harkens back to the original but looks toward the future as well. So I think it was a great effort. Most cars, they would do a couple dozen design sketches, and they had like 140 or 400 design sketches to choose from. And,
this may be the last new internal combustion engine sports car. It's very possible.
That's
when
sad.
You think about it.
That's really sad.
I mean, there's certainly Mazda and Fiat are in no rush to redo the Miata. And I just wonder if this is not, with the exception maybe of something from even Mercedes, but they just did a new SL, and the SLK's gone. So when BMW, I don't know what they're doing with, but it could be the last internal combustion engine sports car, new one.
Yeah, I think the Z has the heritage of the Z name and what that car represented and what it was throughout the years matches closely to its current model more so than the Super does, which is now a small little car. The Super it got big in the 90s.
It got big.
And, now it's it's a BMW. And
I should say that one of my last comment, a lot of people
BMW adjacent on the interior with certain aspects.
I wasn't including things like the Mustang or Camaro in that comment. So, so would you put your money down on one?
If I fit it a little better, I would. If I was 4 inches shorter, maybe.
Dave, for clarity, Dave's, what are you, 6'4"?
6'2".
6'2", okay.
Just the legs didn't quite have enough room there for everyday comfort. And the helmet hit the ceiling. So I wouldn't do much anyway in the car I owned. But
my helmet was hitting the ceiling in the EQS today.
Yeah.
Well,
that's got a very
fairly
creepy,
low roof,
especially
with that retractable sunshade. Well, thanks, Dave. Again, I think we're all kind of biting at the bullet one to get in one.
Oh, yeah.
So before we wrap things up, any more rants and raves? We did a pretty good rant and rave on the lightning round, but is there anything else out there that is overjoying you or no?
I feel like I always come up with them like when I'm driving.
Well, that's
here
if I could
or
write
to
that
work
down while I'm driving.
Exactly.
Just drawing a blank once we sit down.
You know what? I think I had a rant, unless you have a rave or something.
No, I had a little rant, but go ahead.
I think my rant is, and I don't know that this is really applicable to many situations, but we were kind of talking about this last week, and it was automatic seatbelts.
Oh, yes.
Oh, when they tighten up on you the second.
No.
These are the old GM,
ones.
The automatic wrap-around seatbelts that you would open the door, and a motor would retract the shoulder belt,
bring it over
because they didn't have a lap portion.
Yeah,
it was just a shoulder. It was just a body belt.
Yeah. So John was talking about that last week, and I remember that my dad had that in his car a long time ago. I must have been a Nissan at the time.
The 80s, I guess.
He must have owned. It must have been a Sentra or an Altima or something at that time. Whatever car he owned, and to this day, he still has that mindset when he gets into a car that it's gonna do it himself. And so then he starts driving, and then he puts on his seatbelt. So I'm I who else has that ruined? You know what I mean? Yeah. It has to. Somebody else out there has to be
I think
that.
Almost,
don't mean to harp on my dad too much.
I think a lot of us that are older, and I'm not talking about anyone else at this table, still have this hesitation of when you get in a car of putting it in gear before you actually put the belt on. In other words, you've started it up, you put it in gear, it's actually beginning to move, and then you say, okay, and you reach back. Because it wasn't the first thing you were taught to do when you learned how to drive.
Yeah, I back out of the driveway before I put my seatbelt on, so I can turn better.
Well, that's
and
a
look
good point.
behind me.
Well, I mean, it's just so crazy to think that when this show started, like, people weren't wearing seatbelts
wearing
in cars.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't mandated.
No, they
Forces
weren't
will just
mandated.
keep you in your place. It's good.
Well, my rant is kind of a good rant. It's a rant and a rave. And that is because after 3 podcasts of teasing you, we finally are saying goodbye to our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, who is retiring but not quitting work. He's going on to bigger pastures. Jim has been with us on almost every one of the 278 podcasts that we've done for MotorWeek. He's also done hundreds of hours of voiceovers for me and mixing our show. And I don't honestly remember how many total years it involves, but let's say the decades of work. And Jim's a highly experienced audio engineer. He started his career out in radio like I did, so I have a certain affinity for that. But Jim, I just want to make you understand that MotorWeek and everything we've done with you and the podcast have never sounded better. And the legacy that you've left with us is clearly that audio matters, no matter what the picture. And we wish you Godspeed, farewell. I hope you have a great next career, I guess is the best thing. So here for Jim Bigwood.
Right.
Also want to thank on this week's podcast our podcast producer Jessica Ray, our podcast creator Bob Mixter, and also with us today has been senior executive producer David Scrivener and our road test producers Kyle Scanlon. Everyone out there, thanks for joining us. If you want more MotorWeek, hop on over to our website at motorweek.org. If you want to know when we are seen on your local public television station, go up to the top where it says about the show, pull it down, put in your zip code. You'll get times, station, location, all that info. Or hop over to mavtv.com to find when our great cable partner shows us, and they show us many times a week. Gee, what am I forgetting? Go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/MotorWeek for all of our information. Go ahead.
Well, I also I wanted to put in here that we do have a retro review marathon this weekend.
It's a holiday weekend.
It's a holiday weekend. So for Memorial Day, we will be streaming the first half of season 18, which is the years 1998, 1999. And so because it's a holiday weekend, we're going to be streaming it for 72 hours. So basically...
And anybody that stays up that long, no.
So basically, you hang out with the family, you do some cookouts, and then, you go home and just flip on, and we'll be on. We'll basically be on all weekend.
The whole season like 10 times.
The first half. It's the first half of season 18, and that is on our YouTube channel.
And when you look at what cars are like today, and you hear what we said about cars then, you'll say... Can I trust anything they say? Because in the car review business, everything you test is like, wow, we've never tested anything better until next year.
This is the ultimate.
The ultimate.
So we get the ultimate again
Yep.
and again.
Everyone out there, enjoy your holiday weekend, and thanks very much for being a part of MotorWeek.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Lucas Oil, TireRack.com, and RockAuto.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.